American Business Heroes, if you've not seen the first video, please go back and watch that first. In this video, we're going to talk about a disaster. How do you deal with that as a business owner? I mean, what do you do to bounce back? Well, can you imagine going to your business one day and you have 200 body bags out on the sidewalk? Yeah, so we're going to talk about that. Stay tuned. Hey, glad to meet you. I'm Dave Bay. I've been an entrepreneur now for over 34 years in multiple businesses. I'm here to help entrepreneurs and small business owners. I've lived it for years, entrepreneurs for decades and generations. I have dealt with every situation and every challenge you can possibly think of. We're going to blow it up on here. No nonsense advice. Let's build a community of entrepreneurs, of small business owners. We are American Business Heroes. After leaving the stores on March the 2nd of 1997, the floodwaters were coming up, and all I could do was just go home and wait until the floodwaters came down. My retail store cost $1.8 million to build, and it was only 18 months old. And they were evacuating the town of Falmouth, the town that it served. All I could think about was what's going to happen. What's going to happen to this town, what's going to happen to the business, and what's going to happen to me. The National Guard had been called in to secure the whole town, so you couldn't go in as a resident or a business owner. I mean, it was on complete lockdown. So I had to think of myself, how can I get in as quick as possible? I can't stand by and wait for this to unfold. I mean, I had to take action. I had to get back in to get things up and running again. But first I had to even assess what's damaged. What do we have to do here? So I decided to go down to the high school. That's where the command post was set up for the National Guard. But before I did that, I thought to myself, well, what could I offer to them in order to get back in right now and get things cleaned up, evaluated, and move forward with the business? Well, since we were selling gasoline and I had a small oil company at the time, I went down to the high school and I saw the commander and talked to him, and I said, "Sir, I know you need fuel for your equipment, for all the cleanup equipment, everything that's running. I have an oil company. I can today bring an oil truck down and we can fill up the equipment right off the truck. We'll work hard on getting the building cleaned out and operating again so we can service everybody that needs fuel and needs food." So the commander looked at me, he said, "That's fine, let's do this." The key here was that I had something that they needed. Whenever you're faced with a disaster or a problem, look for something that the other side needs from you. So it's a win-win situation. I had several teenagers in a paneled van with cleaning equipment, and I also had the builder with me, and we went down to the town of Falmouth. We went up to the checkpoint right outside of the town, and I instructed them to call up to the high school, talk to their commander, so he could tell them it was okay for us to go in and start work. They did so. They called up to the high school, commander gave the okay, and we went in. I can tell you the town was an absolute mess. Lower sections of the town had 8 to 10 feet of water, and the upper sections had 3 to 4 feet. There were some parts of the town that did not see floodwater, but most of the downtown area, most of the business area saw at least 3 feet, if not 10 feet of floodwater. When I got to the store, I could see there were 200 body bags laying out on the sidewalk. The National Guard had set up with the local fire department a search and rescue inside our building. And on preliminary search and rescue, they found 3 people that had deceased in the flood. Based on that, they called out for 200 body bags to be dropped at the store, anticipating that there would be many, many more fatalities. Thank goodness there were only 2 more, for a total of 5. So the body bags went away, and we were very happy for that, but very sad for the 5 that lost their lives in this flood. So basically, we got into the building, and our instructions were that anything that touched flood water had to be thrown out. Any product. You can't clean it, can't disinfect it. You just had to throw it out. So we went to work grabbing products off the shelves, out of the cooler, in the stock room, back behind the counter, and tossing everything out onto the sidewalk and onto the driveway. And basically what was going to happen, they were taking loaders and scooping up all the product, putting them in dump trucks to be hauled to the dump site. When search and rescue went through a house, they would go through the whole thing. Once it was all clear, they would take a spray can of paint and put a mark on the outside of the house saying it was all clear. Looking at the town of Falmouth, I can tell you that it was a mess. It was hard to imagine that anybody would be back, whether it be businesses or homeowners. There was mud everywhere, there was garbage everywhere, debris everywhere. Some of the houses were taken down, some of the houses were transplanted off the foundation and moved across the street. The floodwaters wreaked havoc on that. I had friends of mine that stayed on the second floor of their houses, also on rooftops and even in treetops. They said it was a horrific situation, listening to animals scream and people cry out for help as the rescue boats went through and looked for everybody that needed help to rescue them. Back to the store though, it was a good decision to kill all the electric because that saved most of the equipment. The only thing that we actually had a problem with were electronic devices that had battery backups. In that case, the electrical current was there, so when the water touched, it connected the two currents and shorted out that equipment. But most things were in pretty good shape, just dirty. While we were working, we did have a situation where the state health inspector came by and asked us what we were doing because no one was allowed back into the town yet. And I told him to call up to the commander of the National Guard and talk to him. The point was, though, in bringing this up, is that under duress, you can't lose your cool. You have to stay cool, calm, collected, and just go about your business because everybody around was really just going about their business as well and trying to protect the situation. First few days that we were working on the store, getting it cleaned up, there were school buses that were starting to transport homeowners and other business owners through so they could see what a mess the town was in. Then finally they opened it up to business owners to come in and start cleaning up. As I had time, I went around to help other business owners clean their locations. I know they greatly appreciated that and they wondered why I was even there. As residents came in and people came in to help and work, they would stop by the store and they would ask questions. How's it going? Are you coming back? When will you be open? And it was really important to answer those questions as best you can. Sometimes you just had enough information that you gave the best guess that you possibly could. Other times you just simply had to say, I don't know, we're just trying. The gasoline dispensers had to be washed off, so they took a garden hose with water and actually poured through all the electrical components, getting all the mud and silt off those. And then they took hair dryers and went back and dried all of those. And it was a very delicate situation, as you can imagine. Once everything was dried, they fired the electricity back up to them and went through each one of the dispensers to see what components had to be replaced. After all the product was taken out of the store, then it was time to wash down the walls, wash down the floor, disinfect everything, and take everything else out of there and get it all cleaned up and dried. As residents started coming into the store just to check on us and see how we were doing, they greatly appreciated the fact that we were coming back as a business. And I thanked them for stopping by and checking on us, but truth be told, we had no choice. We had to come back. After a few days, it became apparent that most of the homeowners were going to be coming back, and most of the businesses were coming back. There were a few homeowners that took FEMA buyouts, and in that case, FEMA paid them a predetermined amount of money, and they just walked away. When they walked away, those properties were turned over to the city of Falmouth. and they had to maintain those properties from that point forward to this very day. Now, the problem with that, of course, is it takes an asset to the city in the form of property tax away and creates an expense in the form of maintaining that property forevermore. The store reopened in 10 days. We got new product in from most of the vendors. I can tell you the vendors were terrific to deal with, and the repair service people were terrific to deal with as well. Everybody poured in to help. Of course, there were a few that poured in that weren't there for good reasons, but for the most part, everybody pitched in, everybody helped, and everybody greatly appreciated us coming back along it with the other businesses as well. Some interesting observations, I think, about the cleanup and that went on during that time period. I believe that people are inherently good, and I think that the residents, again, greatly appreciated the town getting back to normal. As a business owner, I can tell you that it's important to not ask somebody to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. And the perfect example here, we had fried chicken at this store, and in the cooler there was fried chicken that had been marinating for 10 days without electricity. So it was a horrible situation to grab that tub and take that out. I eventually did that myself. I had to take the bucket of chicken that was marinating out of the store, holding my breath the whole time and dumping it out. Hey, thanks for being here. What would you like to know about being an entrepreneur or a small business owner? Leave your thoughts and questions in the comments below, and I will answer those in future videos. Now back to the show. Now, going through this adversity, this disaster, you can imagine that it's just unbelievable to think about what's going to happen. Again, will residents be back? Will we have a town that's even going to service the business? Will we have a business that'll service the town? What are the other businesses doing? It was a very difficult situation to really just put your head down and drive forward and get the store cleaned out, not even knowing if people were going to come back. So it was super challenging. But I can tell you that going through that time frame, on the other side, the most incredible thing happened. Business doubled from before the flood to just after the flood, and it stayed there forever. In fact, it kept increasing after it doubled. And I kept thinking about, well, why is that? And so I think there are a few things to really think about here. Number one, it changed people's buying habits because we were the first store to get reopened. So I think people actually started coming in. They greatly appreciated the fact that we came back, that we were open so quickly, and they just kept coming after that point on. So the positive thing about this was the fact that the store doubled in sales after the flood. Store's still in operation today. Even in the darkest times, American business heroes, keep your head up, keep positive, keep driving forward, because maybe, just maybe, this is driving you to something that's better than what you had before. Have that belief, have that positivity about you. Stay strong,